Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spenser Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
Well, welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show. We're proud to come to you with Season 2. This is Episode 1, our first episode of 2025. We're going to continue talking about personal injury law this year. We're going to continue talking about community involvement, bringing in different people that are involved in the community, some nonprofits, and see where this thing goes in Season 2. As always, I'm Ben Musgrove. This is my law partner, Spenser Bettis. We are personal injury attorneys here in Cumming, Georgia. And we bring you this podcast every so often just to inform you about what's going on in the community and what we're doing in our jobs. And today we are joined by a wonderful lady. She is a staple in Forsyth County community, and that's Miss Cindy Mills. Cindy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I almost called you Cindy Jones there, and then I went Cindy Mills.
I answered anything.
So Cindy, you've been here for your entire life just about, right? Tell us what it's like having grown up in the same community forever and having worked here and raised a family here and that type of stuff. And then we'll talk about where your life went from there.
First, I want to thank y'all for having me, and I want to tell you how proud I am of both of you for stepping out and forming your own law firm. And, you know, that's a brave thing to do, and I wish you all the success. As long as no one's suing me and you're winning because of that, I'm all for it.
We're conflicted out now, but yeah, thank you.
No, and I love your podcast too. I'm a watcher of it, and I am. I think that you're doing a great community service.
Well, thank you.
I think lots of times when a county grows the way ours has, you can lose a sense of who you are and a sense of community. So I think you guys taking the time to spotlight community members is very important. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
I know it takes time to do. So what was let me get back to the question.
Tell us who you are.
Well, the last 12 years, I have been on the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
I was sort of like y'all stepping out. I was terrified. I was scared to death I'd get beat. And my daughter, who is a lawyer as well, listened to me gripe and grumble about District 4 not getting what we should. And I'd already been on Park and Rec Board 11 years.
Okay.
So I was watching up close, and I'd sold real estate. And so I had done zonings, and I had been in lots of meetings and on land planning, and I didn't feel like we were having a proper vision for District 4, and I was afraid we were going to be swallowed up in growth and not have a game plan.
Right.
You know, like who was it we wanted to be, because growth was coming.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was sitting in those zoning meetings and seeing all the houses that were zoned back in 2000, from 2002 to 2006.
Right.
You know, before the downturn occurred. It was... At one time, people said like 35,000 houses were zoned for North Forsyth.
Wow.
And then the crash happened, and those didn't get built, but they were sitting out there waiting.
Right.
And I kept being so concerned with what are we going to do with them? I had worked real hard on the Park and Rec bond. That was a $100 million bond, and met with all the booster clubs and helped get that passed. That gave us all the parks we've got in North Forsyth, really. If citizens hadn't passed that, we wouldn't have had Lanier Land. We wouldn't have had Eagles Beak. We wouldn't have Matt Park. All of that came through that. So well worth it to have it. But at the same time, I tried to get the commissioners at that time to use that money to the land that they bought to be zone land.
Right.
Because that was entitled property, and I knew it would take that off the books. And it would help make us more balanced. Plus, we could buy it for just pennies on the dollar because of the crash. Most of those went back to the bank. But, you know, everybody has their own agenda and has their own, what they believe their own point of view is right. Matt was 399 homes. Matt Park was. So that was a really good purchase.
Yep. Yeah. And now it's a wonderful park.
Oh, it's fabulous.
We're either at Matt Park or Eagles Beak, it seems like, every weekend. So.
And Eagles Beak I love Eagles Beak because we were able to get a really good grant to do that. And I love it because of the history and the
amazing
heritage, to be able to preserve that for, you know, our Native American population is.
For anybody listening, so Eagles Beak sits on the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
And you've got multiple signs out there that document that and talk about, I mean, it's a cool cool part. Obviously, terrible history, but a very cool part.
Oh, yeah. And it's good to remember that history.
It is.
I've walked it with my grandkids, and I try to stop at the signs, even though they're a little bit overkill. They're not real kid-friendly, but at the same time, it's like these people lived on this land.
Yep.
These people, a lot of them died, because of this land. They, and how it was taken from them. So it's good to have that. And it's to me, being on Park and Rec Board those 11 years, when I first got on it was, I think Marcy Krager was the commissioner that put me on first. And then I remained on, really odd, but I remained on with David Richard. And then Patrick Bell reappointed me. Then I ran against Patrick Bell for office. So that wasn't very nice, I don't guess. But anyway, but that gave me watching 3 different commissioners and how, like Park and Rec, things were done and not done and what needed to be done, especially meeting with all the booster clubs throughout the county. I was able to hear, where we were lacking, the gaps that needed to be filled. And before that, I coached 20-something years, my kids playing ball at Coal Mountain and brought in fast pitch, that it's just another thing that change. Sometimes not the change that you'd hope for, but the change was here. And how do you meet that change?
Yeah.
And so just going from that into, I was PTO president before that, and I'm still teaching Sunday school after 30-something years, and I guess 30-something. I always look at Michelle Talent that works for the city of Cumming, and she was 4 when I started teaching Sunday school, and I bet she's getting close to 40 now.
Yeah.
So, and I've taught both her kids. So I've done the Oak Grove Opry at our church. I've sort of turned the reins over to Courtney, but when she's got a trial, I have to pick it back up again.
Right.
So, but we do that to raise money for church camp. So I've always been involved in the community. It's very important to me.
How long have you lived in Forsyth County?
My whole life.
The entire life.
I'm 62. I'll be 63 this year. My Doc Bramlett Road, the Bramletts were my grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. And then Bannister Road was my granny. She was a Bannister, very proud Bannister. And so my great-great-grandparents, they used to own most of the land on Bannister, but of course it just sold during the years. But it's named for the road's named for the family. I grew up on Bannister Road.
Okay. I'm on Bannister Road every day.
Yeah. It's a way different road. When I was 10 years old, it was barely even it was one of those, I don't know what the grade of paving, but where you can see the rocks in the road.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And my good friend, Linda Cole, she was Linda Anderson. She's second or whatever in command at CHOA.
Yeah.
And she lives on Bannister still, but she and I would ride our bikes and meet in the middle of Bannister Road, and which that would have been 1972. And I said, our parents weren't worried about us at all because we knew everybody that drove the road. If somebody came along and we were sitting there, they'd stop and talk.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we knew the dogs. We knew where the dogs were. We knew, everything. And I worried to death before my parents died recently about them just trying to pull out into Bannister Road now. Yeah. It's like a darn freeway. It's so fast.
I still ride my bike on Bannister Road occasionally, but I try to be on it as short of a time as possible. I do the Oak Grove Circle and come up and go back down towards the house. So, it's a busy road.
It is. And we didn't realize, and I think Waze has produced a whole different travel environment.
Right.
But nobody thought about Bannister being that connector road.
Yep.
But anybody going to Dawson, and people take those back roads like Doc Bramlett now.
Yep.
And anything to save a few minutes' time, they'll do. So Bannister has become such a backup.
Oh, and that intersection right there at Highway 9 is, it's always just terrible. But we'll digress on that for a little bit. Talk more about you. So you're a daughter, obviously. You're a mother as well, right?
Yeah, I've got 2 daughters, and I've got 6 grandkids. 6
grandkids.
Grandkids are, everything your parents say about grandkids are true.
Okay.
That they named it a good name because they are grand. Mm-hmm. And mine say I can juice them up on sugar and I send them home.
What's the age range of your grandkids?
The oldest is 12.
Okay.
Brooklyn was born when I got into office.
Okay.
She was a little baby. She was born in October, and I was sworn in December, the end of December. And she's up there in the pictures, and I make a joke of it, and it's a nasty topic joke. But when I was up there, Judge Jordan was swearing me in, and my whole family was up there with me. I had my great-grandparents parents' Bible that was held together with duct tape.
Right.
And I just felt like with the heritage, I needed to have that Bible. That was important to me. My grandmother had given it to me to hold. And Brooklyn had a blowout while we were up there because babies do that at the most.
They sure do.
But I said it was sort of prophetic of what was to come. That it was like, I think the Lord was telling me I was going to have to deal with a lot of crap. So I might as well get ready. And it would be the least unexpected times.
Yeah.
And very true. So it was when I got my grandkids to come when they gave me a little going away party, and I wanted to make their picture with me at my seat.
Sure.
Only because I wanted them to be able to see, especially I've got an 18, well, he's 20 months old now. That's my baby. I mean, he's the youngest, but then I've got the two girls, Megan and Courtney both had daughters that were 6 months apart, and they're 4.5. They're Brooklyn, Liana, let me get that right. Liana is 6 months older than Brian.
Okay.
Brian will be 5. So they're, anyway, 4.5 and 5.
Okay. So the entire lives of your grandchildren, you've been a commissioner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't know. And when I say I'm not going to be a commissioner anymore, they don't even care about it. They don't even know what that is.
Right.
They've been with me to the office. Like, I think Charlie one time had to sit through a call work session. And I put him up beside me with a little piece of paper because it was an unplanned meeting, and I'd already told my daughter I'd babysit.
Yeah.
They were out of town. But by and large, they're like, that's the building CC works in. But they were so happy when I said I wasn't going to have meetings, because all they knew was CC can't be somewhere because she has meetings.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so to them, I'm
not Commissioner Mills, just CC.
No, I'm just CC.
I like it.
I'm just CC.
Let's talk about when you started to get into the commissioner role. Like what, you already talked about why you ran for office. What was it like preparing for it? And then once you got in?
There is nothing. You go to this new commissioner training, and I felt like as involved as I had been in the community, and especially looking at government up close, that I had sort of an advantage that other people, and I attended every meeting before I took office, like before I ran. I started in January, and I watched it like a hawk. I was at everything because I had a suspicious nature of thinking that things were not going to be done right for the district.
Right.
And so I just kept an eye on everything. And keep in mind, I knew most of the employees because I had been so involved, which was a great thing because your success in this job largely should depend upon the employees.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be based upon your own knowledge. They're the experts in the field. They should be allowed to do their jobs. And so I never took that, I said being a commissioner, some commissioners are like, well, I spent the night in a Holiday Inn and I ran for office and now I'm just knowers of all.
Right.
That's not the way it should be. We should rely on staff.
Yeah.
And we should not try to overrule staff. We should trust their judgment.
Sure.
And
like I said, they're on the ground every day dealing with it. That's their job.
But there's nothing prepares you for when you're sitting in there taking your first vote. Like, I got blindsided on an issue that I thought was a nothing. Like, I really tried to be very prepared. Like, I studied my agenda ahead of time. Nobody comes in and says, let me help you with that.
Right.
You're just sort of like the Wild Wild West thrown out there. And Dana Miles, and Dana knows this, we've had conversation about it, but he represented civil service, I think, at the time.
Okay.
Totally like a nothing. Like it'd be the same if one of y'all represented something. I went to Ken Gerard and I said, Ken, do you have any issues with Dana and the role that he's been in? Do you think that he does a good job in representing civil service? If you had any complaints? And he said, no, I didn't think there was any. It was like a nothing vote to me.
Right.
I wasn't on the social media groups. And I didn't know that there was this big uproar against the city of Cumming and that Dana was viewed as being evil by this group. It's this, now we call it the club, but that was being viewed, and they controlled the messaging. And so I didn't even know that. I just thought it'd be a 5-0 vote.
Right.
And in that same meeting, we had something to do. I think it was on ambulances. I could be wrong. It could have been a little later, but I saved the county $60-something thousand because I did my homework on it. And I had met with people over the hospitals. I
Right.
had learned what a high pay county we were. They were asking, like our insurance was great.
Yeah.
Our pay to whatever ratio was fabulous. And they were asking for us to provide another ambulance and us pay for it, and said it was because they didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And I knew that was not factual, and we were not getting anything. And the hospitals were saying, no. Forsyth County has one of the best pay rates out there. Anyway, but nobody wrote on social media that I saved the county $67,000 that day.
Right.
Everybody was writing I was in the hip pocket of Dana Miles, and that because I was the third vote for him to keep being the civil service attorney.
So this is just getting started.
That's my first meeting.
All right. So let me ask you this.
Very first meeting.
Was that validation that you had made the right choice to get in on the board, or was that, man, I made a mistake? I should have listened to the baby's blowout and bailed.
I definitely knew I had done that. I mean, like with me, I've never been one that can, and I'm a sinner saved by grace. I don't sit and pretend like I am like some elite Christian. I'm just the same as the thieves hanging on the cross.
Right.
I'm forgiven. But I could have never done this job apart from the Lord.
Yeah.
And I never let my politics come before people or come before my faith. And so when I could never do this job if I hadn't had the Lord on my side.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's the hardest job I've ever done and I will ever do, I'm certain. And the bombs and attacks that were thrown at me that were so unfair and so unjustified, over and over, just lie after lie that I would read and my kids would read. And, even gone so far as they put up signs that said I was the reason traffic was bad.
Right.
Like with my name, and my grandkids can read.
I remember seeing them,
And, all of a sudden, all over North Forsyth, which was part of, they thought, running me out of office. It was all a plan. But at my very last meeting, when I gave my little speech, and I mean this from the heart, I mean this as sincerely as I can say it, is I really believe that in y'all's job, in any of our walks of life, you're going to run into bad people, and you're going to run into people that want to be relevant. They'll use your name to bring relevance to themselves. They want to have meaning, and they'll go to any extreme to have that. And some were sitting in the audience, my last meeting, to celebrate in front of me my leaving.
Right.
And I looked out at them and I said, this is going to sound really strange. And I said, but I've thought this through for many years. I believe that God can use people with ill intent, that God can bring good to other people because,
absolutely,
regardless of them.
Sure.
And I said, I just want to say to you, and you know who you are. I said, I'm not excusing the lies you've told about me. I'm not excusing the pain you've brought to my family. Some at the lowest moments when my dad was dying.
Right.
I said, but what I will say, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. He used it for good. And it kept me humble. It kept me, where I was leaning on God. It kept me, and I believe the success I was able to experience was in large part because I never got the big head.
Right.
I never thought that this job was just a job.
Yeah.
It wasn't who I am. It was never, that's why I think I can let go of it because, and be able to have another thing in life, because I felt like it's just a stepping, it's just where it was where God wanted me to be at that time.
Right.
And God, I don't think God, just because you turn 62 and you end a job, that God's finished with you.
Well, so we should tell folks that don't know. So you were on the board of commissioners for 12 years.
12 years.
And you just finished your last term a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just finished.
Yeah, I call it a retirement party. Do you call it retirement? I don't know how you phrase it, but that was last week, I guess, right?
Yeah. And I was blessed. We had, I don't know, hundreds of people came out to wish me well. And it makes you feel good because social media gives you sometimes, the feeling that everybody hates you.
Sure.
And that's what they want. It's bullying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no wonder we're having trouble with kids in school bullying because, my God, they're getting it straight from home.
Right.
But it is, it made me like, I felt so much love in the room and so much appreciation. And I appreciated them. I tried to make sure that people that had helped me along the way were invited. They couldn't all come, but I invited a little boy I taught in Sunday school who's now, y'all probably know Joshua Bearden. He worked, well, Joshua's an attorney now, but he came and one whole day he did nothing but water bottles, vote for Cindy. Sat at my pool house doing the water bottles for the 4th of July parade. And I said, Joshua, I want you to be there if you can because you did my water bottles for me, you know. And not just him, you know, I thought about back to my first election. There was a guy that lived in Laurel Springs, and he came to my house. Tom Graves, it's just so weird the way Tom Graves was in office then in D.C., and it wasn't that Tom really knew me that well, because he didn't. He just didn't like who I was running against because he had gotten involved in his election. And so Tom said, how can I help you with your election? And I said, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even have a consultant. I mean, I'm like...
Just knocking on doors.
He said, well, what about if I send the guy, and his name was Dave Allen, that worked on my campaign, and he'll show you how you can use our program for calling people, talking people that's voters. I'll give you the voter registrar list. He just gave me all this stuff. And so we did call banking at my house. And this man I'd never met before, Les, that lived in Laurel Springs, just wanted to help on my campaign.
Yeah.
And he came and was sitting out on my deck with his laptop calling people. And my deck hadn't been painted. It looked awful. And I'm sitting thinking, what am I doing? Who are all these people? You know, like it. So there've been a lot of good.
Yeah.
And I invited Les to come the other night. And I said, I'll never forget you sitting on my deck calling those people for me. And it is, you meet people that are good people.
Sure.
That I believe I'll have relationships with them for a long, long time. I was blessed that the people that served, you know, on my ZBA, Don Owens, he lived in Hampton. I met him as HOA president, and Don was with me 12 years. Gary Cooper, my park and rec, was with me 12 years.
Yeah. I
mean, I had fabulous planning commissioners through the years. That's a harder job. But, you know, it's those good relationships, you sort of feel sad, like you think you're letting them go.
Right.
But I have such deep appreciation for people that help. There's a lot of volunteers in county government that help you a lot too, and I appreciate them because they make your job easier.
Sure. You just brought up a lot of things I want to talk about. I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. So maybe let's start with, in 12 years of being on the board, what do you consider some of your biggest milestones or greatest achievements?
Probably first and foremost are things people don't even know about or think about.
Yeah.
I think that starting the Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council,
which is how I was first introduced to you. Christopher told me about it. Yeah.
It has had a huge impact for the good in our county. It's become an umbrella for all things, and we still meet every month.
Yep.
It's been going on. We're in the 10th year of our grant. Funny story. Here I go down a rabbit hole.
That's all right.
When we started our drug council, I got into office in 2013, and the fall of 2012, 3 kids from North Forsyth area had died of opioid overdose.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know heroin had made a comeback.
Yep.
And I started asking the new Sheriff Piper about it. My nephew was acquaintances with all 3.
Right.
2, well, actually, in one family, the brother didn't die, but the younger brother did.
Mm-hmm.
And the overdose and death occurred in the basement, and the mother was upstairs.
That's terrible.
And I started asking questions about it because it just, I don't know why. I think it was the Lord, but it was just so near and dear to my heart. Like I thought, if it could happen to those families, I mean, it could happen to mine.
Yeah.
And why? What's happening? And so I knew most of the people that were in the positions. I called Sheriff Piper and I said, I want to try to get a group of people together to talk about this. I think there's something occurring. And so I reached out to Judge Bagley. I reached out to Drug Court. I reached out to Donna Gopal, was solicitor then. I tried to invite every nonprofit. Buster Evans was our superintendent. I had him there. We had probably the first meeting we had 40 people in the room.
Okay.
And I said, I don't know what we need to do, but as leaders, we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just bury our head and more kids die. And I said, I had a good friend of mine that just did an intervention with her son. I didn't even know what an intervention was.
Right.
And he was using black tar heroin, and it looked like a racer and around their computer. And I'm like, I mean, she knew nothing. And I said, we've got to do something. So we decided we'd have our first drug summit. First time everybody's pulled together to have it. We had it at the conference center. And I thought, well, we got to have a headliner. Like, we need a big speaker.
Sure.
And or something to draw people. I had no idea how big the problem was.
Yeah, it was huge.
We needed no one. No one came, but my sister had just bought a lake lot from John Smoles.
Okay.
And so I said, would you ask him and Catherine, his wife, if they might consider being the headliner and signing us some baseballs or something?
Okay.
And so I not a few weeks later, I'm on the phone with John and Catherine Smoltz talking about the drug summit, and they were even having an issue in their own home.
Sure.
With her child. And it was so God thing, because he wanted to talk about it. He wanted to share that with the group. He wanted to bring it to light. He felt like the Lord was leading him.
Mm-hmm.
That first drug summit, we had 550 people come. We had to keep opening up the conference center doors wider and wider. We couldn't even get people in the room. And I was sitting up on the stage, and I was watching families sobbing.
Sure.
I can't even hardly talk about it without crying, because we were helping people we didn't even know existed in the county.
Yeah.
But it offered them hope that they lived in a community that cared.
And what was the drug council offer? Like, what services did it provide?
To begin with, we were just education and prevention.
Okay.
That's still our primary focus, but we do a lot of networking for it. Now we have, now that schools have become community schools, we train people and support people in learning how to go out and speak, like people in recovery. We work with the drug courts.
Mm-hmm.
We work with the school system. We have them go in and talk to classes. We do a lot of, we used to do big drug summits, and now we've changed it. We've got one coming up in February at UNG, and UNG's becoming a partner too. We were able to get a big opioid grant.
Yeah.
That was rewarded right at my last meeting. The county jumped in on this opioid litigation that was nationwide.
Yep.
When they took on the big pharma.
And they called it weren't we in like some kind of triangle or something? I can't remember how they described it.
Our county was one of the, what they call that. We even did a drug summit on that.
I can't remember now. It was like us,
It'll
we went
hit
all
me.
the way over to Cobb, and
It'll hit me. Alpharetta was right in the heart of it.
Yep.
And we even had 11 Alive do one of the drug summits.
I think that's where I saw it.
And Jeremy something did it that was with 11 Alive. And anyway, we highlighted that. And I learned so much through doing the drug. I learned never put a microphone out in the crowd.
Right.
But we learned just a lot about like we had the sheriff's office, a partnership. They did the mock bedrooms where kids are hiding drugs.
Right.
We showed them the containers where it looked just like a water bottle, but it was really. And we were able to do ordinances. I'm so proud of this, and people don't know, but I had 2 deputies come to me and say, Miss Mills, we've got all this drug paraphernalia being sold in our convenience stores.
Yep.
And we did 3 ordinances, and one of them, I woke up in the middle of the night. I know that it came from the Lord, because it was, you've got to tie vaping to the alcohol ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they get now in our county, no other counties, unless they've copied us, do they do that? But we tied, so the drug paraphernalia ordinance, every piece of drug paraphernalia has to be licensed and pay a licensing fee to the county.
Okay.
And it has to be hidden.
And this is just like smoking devices, and
this is like the bracelets that you think are an Indian woven bracelet, and they're really a meth pipe.
Okay.
That's up at the register. They have roses that were like up at the register that look like just silk roses, and you open them, you get them out of this fake ice, and it's meth pipes on the bottom.
Okay.
or marijuana. You
Yeah.
know, they're smoking devices. You know, it's glass little bongs on the bottom.
Right.
They were selling all that. I mean, I went in after that into the stores and I'm making pictures and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then the vape thing came on. And we had a doctor that was very much a part of this anti-vaping because of popcorn lung and all the damage that it was doing. And we got ahead of that and we wrote a whole ordinance for vape shops. Vape shops here cannot sell like what they did, and they can lose their license for underage. Now it's all about enforcement.
Right.
And if the sheriff's office doesn't enforce it, then it's not going to be done. But we also had an ordinance that we knew that we could not have anything. It had to be based on marketing because they changed the formula, like on Delta 8, Delta 10, all these things. They're really get high products. And they were selling them. They sell them now in convenience stores. We can't stop them from selling it, but we have an ordinance that's based upon marketing. And if on the package it shows marijuana leaves or get high, you know, if there's anything, then they're not allowed to sell it. And so we tied the vaping, we tied that underage to the alcohol license. And
Okay.
I knew everything, all roads lead to the pocketbook.
Right.
And if we could tie it to that, and the alcohol is the bread and butter for a convenience store. I mean,
Makes sense.
That's what makes their big dollars. And so if they were going to do underage sales and it go against 3 strikes, you're out pretty much on your underage stuff. And so I think that has helped tremendously in making our convenience stores better. Now, that doesn't mean they can't just drive over the line. And worse than that, and I'll say this in any public forum, parents are buying it for kids. That is it all goes back to the home.
Right.
And we've got parents that are right now, one of the biggest problems our kids are facing are parents that are wanting to be friends instead of parents. And I'm not laying all blame. There's a lot of parents that are having issues that don't do that and never have. I'm not putting guilt there. Some, you know, it used to be 1 out of 11. Now it's 1 out of 7 kids. It just sticks. They have that addictive gene. Yeah. But it's really bad when a parent thinks that marijuana is the same marijuana that it was when we were growing up. Right. When a 2 to 4% THC level is now in gummies 35% and up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, kids are, you know, you take 2 gummies and look what you put into your body. And no wonder it's causing psychosis. Yeah. So I'm very proud of the Drug Council. I could talk about that all day long. I'm very proud. And it's continuing, and I'm continuing with it because it's never had anything to do with the county. The county never funded it. We also have a mental health council that was the offshoot of what the judges have. That was their mental health. We started it. It was a worker bee. That's what I called it. They're the people that work in it daily. Yeah. We meet once a month. We do suicide prevention. Okay. There's a lot of overlap with drugs and suicide, but there's a lot that's not. Sure. And we did not want there to be a stigma attached that says that, you know, everybody that ends their lives on drugs. Right. They're not. Right. They're not. Yep. I heard another suicide occurred yesterday, and that means we've had 5. What was this today? 16 the 15th, days, yeah. 16. I mean, we've had 5 in our county since January 1. It is a really unbelievable pandemic in itself, or an epidemic. And I mean, I think some of it is a consequence from COVID. But I think also we're not teaching coping skills enough. Right. You know, we've social media, cell phones. So many things. Yeah. I mean, they're all contributing to it. But we meet once a month. We've had suicide summits where we try to end stigma with it. I had a gentleman come up when we had our first one that sat behind me in church forever. Yeah. And he said, I just want to thank you because my dad ended his life by suicide when I was 30. I felt like that ever since then, he's only being remembered for his last act. Right. And I've walked around with that. And I thank you for, you know, trying to end the stigma. Sure. With that and say that that might have been the last thing he did, but it wasn't all he did. And there's a reason, you know, lots of times we have labeled people on drugs, people that die by suicide, as being in some people's mind just a choice, or
Right.
they chose to be that way, or that was what they, and there's so much more to it than that.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, mental health is not a choice.
No, it is not.
Hmm.
So both those things. Then you get into zoning. I mean, I think the last on the CERT team that we put together that came through mapping, it's saving lives. It is I don't even remember what CERT, CIRT, but that is the Terry Hawkins unit that is with the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
And they are literally going out and saving lives. They average 1 suicide call a day, but this is in the land of rich and plenty.
Right.
People pretend like this is not occurring. It's occurring, and it's occurring. There's no socioeconomic to it.
No discrimination.
No discrimination. And so that unit they've now added a second unit, and they're looking to add a third so they can work weekends and overnight.
Yeah.
They get called constantly. They get called on things here that people don't even realize we have issues with. Like right now, probably one of the most pressing issues in our county is our seniors, abandoned seniors. And they don't have anybody. When I was growing up, in 1980, when I graduated, 27,000 people here, churches looked after people in their community.
Yeah.
As we've grown bigger and bigger, those people are sort of getting lost, and people move here for the senior exemption.
Yep.
They move here because it's a great place to live. And then though their kids aren't here. And so our CERT unit gets a call to do a well check.
Mm-hmm.
They find out that the senior is living in deplorable conditions, that they have dementia, they have Alzheimer's, they are incapacitated in lots of ways.
Yep.
But there's adult protective services, but oh my God, so limited.
Sure.
Yep.
And so we almost need a CASA for the elderly.
Yeah.
But it gets so complicated with the law because you have to make somebody be incapacitated, and people,
Right.
our whole medical system. But so 30% of their calls have to do with seniors that have been abandoned, but it takes up 80% of their time.
I actually worked on a probate case with that sheriff's office unit and an elderly woman who her kids weren't taking care of her. She was living in deplorable conditions, and they went above and beyond.
Oh, they're wonderful. Julie, Terry, all of them are fabulous, caring hearts. They're helping a lot. I venture to say that some of our suicide cases would never have occurred had we had that unit in place at the time.
Yeah.
They form relationships with people that have a trust, that are mentally ill, that might go off medication, but more than just the person. They form relationships with the family, and it's a trusting relationship. It's different. They don't wear the cop clothes. They dress civilian, but forming that relationship, which is what all this is about.
Right.
But forming that trusting relationship when when the son goes off the meds and he starts going, losing it and seeing people coming in on him and seeing, being attacked and which are all illusions, but they're real.
Right.
They can call and reach out, and they can go out, and they have that relationship. And that, to me, that's like one of the best things we have done. And
Absolutely.
It took years to do.
How long has that been in place?
Popper was still sheriff then when it started. So I would say it started in 2014, 15.
Okay. 10-ish years.
We had to get CJCC involved. Then we got a federal grant. It was very complex. And see, that's something nobody knows about me.
Right.
Like, they don't know those are things that the public should care about. They get way more up in arms over a variance of 2 feet
Right.
than they do. And it's not all fun to write about until it's affecting your home and your family.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you realize it could affect anybody. And it is people just tend to not have the right compassion to me. Our priorities are messed up.
Sure.
And it ought to be that we could help save people's lives if we had more care in the community to save it.
Yeah.
When they killed the mental health building, which is my greatest regret.
Right.
I know you didn't ask me my
I had a
greatest
feeling
regret.
that was going to come up. Yeah.
But after 8 votes, we'll never have $30 million dropped in our lap to do it again. It was supposed to be COVID related, and that was because mental health spiraled. I mean, and skyrocketed, whichever way you want to look at it. We had public health going to be in there, our public health department, same health department when I was growing up. I mean, we had people lined up in the concrete down the hill waiting to try to get vaccines because we were so not prepared for it, inadequate. And they, we planned a meeting on a Monday, just a few days ahead, a listening session. And we had the top of the field from CHOA. We had the top of NAMI, Kim Jones, statewide. We had person after person get up and say, we're in a complete crisis. We have nowhere for children to go. This was going to provide 11 beds for kids. Mm-hmm. And the board, 3 members of the board, not 5, voted to change it and put it toward water and sewer with a debt of $200 million where what's 30 going to matter? Yeah. I mean, you still owe $170 million more.
Right.
But $30 million in mental health would have been a game changer for our community.
And was the argument there just folks don't want a mental health facility where they live? Or is it?
They didn't want people, they really could never give a straight answer.
Okay.
And especially after voting on it 8 times, and it was down to December 31st was the last day. If you didn't commit, we had committed every quarter that money was going to mental health for 3 or 4 years. And the spending had to occur by December 31st of 2024. It had to be, and they changed it all to change it at the last minute. And the big thing they kept saying is we don't want it to be state run, but it's $10.5 million a year. Where are we going to run it? Yeah. Where are we going to get the funds? And they didn't want people from other counties coming here.
So didn't want bringing mental health issues into this county to treat there?
But they're completely ignoring all the mental health issues that are here. To me, what I have learned through all these suicide things we've done is that we had one girl that came to one of the suicide summits that I didn't know was coming. She had cut herself 50-something times, and her mother woke up, divine intervention, and went upstairs, and she was bleeding out in her bedroom. And if she hadn't have woken up at 2 a.m, the girl would have died. And she came, and she wasn't a planned speaker, and she got up at the microphone, and she said, I never realized, and she was sobbing, that I lived in a community that cared. And I think there's no way we can say how much that mental health building was meaning to people. We had 200 people that came on a Monday to talk about how much it meant to them. And they gave personal stories. My son died by suicide. My daughter died by suicide. My brother died by suicide, or I'm a health professional.
Right.
And I can't even have enough. I've got 50 employees and I've got a waiting list of 3 weeks to see somebody that's in crisis.
Well, I think you touched on it earlier too. I mean, it used to be something that was really kind of not managed, but tended to by the church. And that seems to have kind of gone away. And now it's more of a government thing than it is a church thing, for the better or worse. I won't make that argument. But you've got to have somebody there for people with mental health issues to lean on, whether it's a church or an organization or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and it's such a complex issue now. Kids have got more, I brought this up at one of our public meetings, and the chair bit my head off and said they shouldn't be telling those things, but they didn't violate HIPAA. It was just a school professional said that they had 9 girls in an elementary school in South Forsyth. And I think that people think, well, if there's mental health issues, they're only in North Forsyth. And because there's more poverty there. That has got nothing to do with it. Yeah. Nothing. Absolutely. I can argue all day that sometimes the more money you have, the more problems you have.
Sure.
And it might change the type of drug you're getting or the type of mental health issue you're dealing with, but it's real. It's happening everywhere. And to deny it is, it's like sweeping something under the rug and it won't get fixed because you're denying.
Right.
And she said that they had 9 girls in an elementary school that were cutting. They were self-harming. And that one had to be released from the group. They were bringing therapy, but one had to be taken away from the group because she was telling the others they weren't cutting deep enough. And at that point, my granddaughter was in 5th grade at Coal Mountain. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? this is occurring and we're choosing to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye. And yet all of our kids have to go to Savannah or out of state, and then they don't have there's no continuity of care. So every time you start over with a new therapist, it's like starting over again. And I mean, so much of it needs to be family centric. And you've got people that can't drop everything and go to Savannah because they lose their job. To me, out of all the things that I participated in, every zoning, everything, every vote, the changing of and doing away with the mental health was the greatest, most disgusting, but the greatest travesty for the well-being of our county and anything else that has ever occurred in my time. Yeah. And the issue is not going to go away. It will not go away. And people said, well, Kevin Tanner, who was our county manager, went on to be the head of DBHDD, and that's who funds it. Kevin was who brought forth the building when he was our county manager. So it was designed. He was the head of the Mental Health Commission for the state of Georgia, appointed by Governor Kemp. And then they argued that the building wasn't done right, and how was the decision made? I mean, we had the head of the Mental Health Commission making those decisions. It was everything we needed to help. But at the same time, I talked to Kevin Tanner many times about it, and he said, we've got counties begging for us to come. We're not going to try to force this building on a county that don't want us.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Sure.
So
well, hopefully it gets built somewhere and people can get help they need. Well, bring it back positive. So
I love Lanier Land Park.
There we go.
I love Lanier Land. My family owned Lanier Land Music Park growing up. So I love that it's still a gathering place and people are enjoying it. And I love what all we've done for Miracle League and moving Miracle League there. And I love my involvement with Keystone, and I had a meeting with them just last week. I had a fundraising meeting with them yesterday. They got a big fundraiser coming up. Yeah. They got to have $20 million that they're hoping to raise or to be able to borrow. But it'll be the first special needs community in our entire county.
Yep. We had Abby on the podcast, and she told us this incredible organization.
Oh, it's going to be full the day it opens.
Sure.
Yeah,
but
that's what she said, yeah.
We were able, I helped facilitate, and we were blessed to have a developer that gave them I think it's 8.7 acres of land, but they can do their whole community. They want to start small with 90 residents to begin with, and then they hope they can replicate it throughout different places. But that developer, people give developers, same thing they do to landowners, like they're all evil and this developer had bought and paid for an entitled piece of property that's got, I think it was close to 70 townhomes on this parcel.
Yeah.
And he gave it up, which was a $5-point-something million gift to Keystone. And then the builder that came in, Meritage Homes, gave him $500,000 to go toward,
getting started,
paying their sewer, doing whatever, just to get it off the ground. So that's been a big God thing too. Coal Mountain, that whole thing, the town center, I worked on.
I saw you post about it the other day. What's it going to be called?
It's going to be called the Crossing at Coal Mountain.
Okay.
It's at 9 and 369, a crossing of two state roads, just right off 400, a mile off 400. We already had the Coal Mountain overlay, but we wound up doing a Coal Mountain Town Center overlay.
Okay.
So we got an overlay and another overlay that was just for the town center. We had third-party architect that would review the plans. So my worry was I'm a control freak, and that I'd get out of office and all the things they had promised would go by the wayside and it wouldn't get built. So we had a review process put in place with a third-party architect, sort of like form-based code that they do in Woodstock and different places. Norfolk Side's the only ones that have been utilizing that and doing it. But it's not because I like more bureaucracy. I just want people to deliver what they've promised.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So it's going to be like 100,000 square feet of commercial. It does have 300 apartments. It has, it's going to be incredible.
So you're going to have good food. That's really
what we hope.
All right. We need good food, North Side.
We do, and sit-down restaurants. It can't be drive-thrus.
Nope.
That's prohibited in the town center.
Okay, good.
So it's going to be a little halcyon, but much smaller.
Yeah.
Not as much commercial, because I couldn't get anybody to. I created the vision for it. It was an old zoning I inherited a lot of those. And as I mentioned earlier, and this one was zoned 25 acres on, it's a total of like 155 acres or so. And it was all disjointed. None of it was connected. I mean, like, it was all zoned, but no connectivity. And so you had 25 acres on the front that was just CBD. No architectural anything, just CBD. Then you had behind those warehouses, if you're going on 9 North, 15 acres, 90 townhomes. You had over next to Coal Mountain Park, 40 acres, 350 townhomes. No conditions. Like, it could be, I think they had to be 1,000 square feet. That was it. I mean, it was what we could have gotten. And so I had a meeting, big room full of people, all of them the property owners in the 150 acres. And I said, guys, I know you're entitled, but I'm going to change your zoning. And they're looking at me like, you're going to do what?
Right.
And if I hadn't had real estate experience, I could not have done it because it was like a reverse assemblage. And I had done assemblages in the past. I'd never went backwards on it.
Right.
And so, and in the course of all that, there was another component that was the Coal Mountain Connector Road. Had nothing to do with the town center. My little arch nemesis keeps saying, oh, she gave the developers a road that had nothing to do with it. What brought about, at the same time Walmart was coming in, which was an old zoning from 2003 that I got. I mean, I got labeled, but I try always to I like to make lemonade out of lemons. And even though Walmart was approved so long ago, I went back and I met with their corporate guy and I said, North Forsyth has nothing in their schools. They have nothing, like they don't have corporate sponsors. And the principal that just came had $1 million less in his checking account when he got to North than when he was at South. That was discretionary spending. And I said, we've got to help. I said, would you be willing to donate $50,000 to the school to do a farm-to-table program? The Rotary's going to put greenhouses in at all the schools, and that way we can sell it. My goal is to have a farmer's market at Coal Mountain and everybody be able to come and sell their plenty.
Yeah.
Or my real goal that didn't happen, I wanted to have a cannery at North Forsyth High School so kids could learn how to can food and give it back to the needy at the place and different things.
Yeah, canning food doesn't exist anymore.
No. And I went up and looked at the one that was up in LJ, and it was fabulous. And they said they have a lot of people from Forsyth County that come and do baby food and different things. So I didn't get that. That was my goal. I might still keep trying to push for that because the school system did have a plan for it. But Walmart agreed they wouldn't do 50, they'd do 25. And we started the North Forsyth High School Farm to Table program. I got to hear a kid get up and speak to all the teachers at North Forsyth. He was a kid that went to Piney Grove. He had 58 demerits in 1 year at Piney Grove.
Oh, wow.
He was standing up there in his little blue corduroy FFA jacket. And he said, had it not been for Farm to Table, he said, my mom made me come to North trying to make me get into ROTC because of the trouble he'd been in.
Right.
He said, I never realized that I would become a spokesperson for FFA.
Yeah.
And he was a state officer. It just lit him up. I mean, like they had 350 kids that were in Farm to Table. And FFA made a comeback after being gone for so many years.
Yeah.
And then Liberty followed, and they wound up having Farm to Table, and they have the best Farm to Table program. But our Rotary Club has sponsored, and we had greenhouses at all the schools, or either aquaponics or something.
Right.
That's been a big thing. We
I know
had
my
one put at the place too.
My girls have chickens at their elementary school, and somebody has to sign up to feed the chickens. They're out on break and summer break. And
that all came through that Farm to Table, and from that. So those are things I'm really proud of that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
But those are things, I like to think of things that impact people's lives, that makes things. I mean, we had a child at either Matt or Liberty that wound up, she had a reaction to a strawberry, and she'd never had a reaction to anything before. And if we hadn't had that Farm to Table program, they wouldn't have known that. And that teacher, Hollingsworth, is who told us that she was able to see that. To me, that That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I think about talking about the canning. I mean, it seems like every weekend of every summer growing up, we were down to my grandparents' house creaming corn or shelling peas. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't fun at the time, but looking back on it, it's fond memories. I kind of wish things like that would come back. I think that's neat.
Well, and I think the pandemic, when food source was so, and people, couldn't get things, it really showed us. And I think it would show kids too that, sometimes kids, adults too, but we can all be so selfish and we think that everybody's world is the same as ours.
Yeah.
And it's not. And it makes, when you look at other people's lives, it can make your own life enriched by having an appreciation, for what you have, and sometimes you don't see what you have until you see what others don't have.
Sure. And I did want to mention on Lanier land, so we had Chris Emmett, senior pastor at local church, come in a few weeks ago. He made a comment about how amazing the Forsyth County parks are. So whatever you did there, thanks. The parks are incredible.
We're blessed. I grew up playing ball at old Matt School.
Yep.
That 1 acre was donated on. There's a guy named Greg Pruitt that works for the school system. His daddy, Fred, I can remember his white and black LTD Ford putting center blocks on the back of it to drag the field.
Right.
We had no county workers that do anything. That's really ticks me off when I'm at a park and I'll have people write me an email because they see a piece of trash and that, and don't get me wrong, I get irritated when the workers don't, if they don't, empty the cans or do, I said, the worst thing that ever happened to the county is buying all the gators because the boys won't get off of it. They just like to ride on them gators. But they're our parks.
Sure.
Our taxpayers, they're ours. We ought to take pride in it. Yep. That to me is where I've seen a big difference, is that when those community ball fields were donated by parents and we played there, our parents would build a concession stand. There was great pride in that. Booster clubs still have some pride in the parks, I think, but by and large, people are taking things like that for granted.
Yeah.
And they think they just happen.
I'll admit I got in trouble one time up at Lanier Lane because I parked in the grass when the parking lot was full, and they took a picture of my truck and put it on Facebook. And
we didn't have adequate parking.
But
I could argue there was
plenty of parking, but it was full, and I parked in the grass.
But we didn't offer until this new section got open. The parking was very lacking at Lanier Land.
Yeah. It's a great park, though.
It's beautiful.
What you got, Spence?
Well, what do you think makes an effective leader? What have you learned in your experience that would help with that?
Oh, I think the first is integrity, having an honest person. And we so need people in elected positions that run to be a public servant and not to hold a title. And I see it over and over and over again. I mean, it's just such an ego trip for some people. And it's all about me.
Sure.
I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good leadership. I think leadership really is recognizing why you're serving. Like leadership, besides having character and being brave and not afraid to stand for those beliefs, it's also having a listening ear to your constituency and being open to say, I don't get it all right all the time. I've made some mistakes. I wish I could go back and get a mulligan and redo on that. But, but at the same time, let's sit down and create a plan together that you can believe in and I can believe in that. And honestly, only somebody that grew up in a place. I had an affection for Eagles Peak Park because I rode a bus by Eagles Peak Park. The Mac community is my whole family. Doc Bramlett Road. I ran for office because of the love I have for the county.
Right.
It was never about wanting to hold a title. It was never about thinking I'm smarter than everybody else. It was all about my family's never going anywhere.
Well, and I'll tell you this, just the other day I was talking to somebody, and I think anybody listening can tell you're very passionate about Forsyth County. And this person said, love or hate Cindy Mills, she was an advocate for the people that were in her district. That is 100% true across the board. So whether people like your ideas or don't like your ideas, I think that your message came across that you were an advocate, and that you were doing it for the right reason. So I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
I won't name drop that guy. He knows who he is and he watches this, but yeah.
Well, thank you. It was from the heart. And I took it very personal when they took the district away from me.
Yeah.
Because I had for 10 years met every one of those people, and I felt a service. I mean, I knew your HOA person. I knew I had worked with Stephanie. I mean, on that decommissioning of the sewer plant there. I felt like nobody was going to care about those people like I cared about it.
Well, let me ask you this. So when it comes to being an advocate, and we talk about advocacy a lot, clearly you're advocating for the people that vote for you, and you're advocating for the people that live in Forsyth County. How do you deal with it, or how do you separate it when whatever it is that may be in the best interest of the county or the citizens isn't necessarily what you would like to see?
It's difficult. I mean, it's like I go back to the landfill.
Yeah.
The people that were in that room the first night, I mean, they were pitchfork because they were going for an expansion. And I told them, I always was just upfront and honest. If I were a mediator, I mean, and I think I have a gift for trying to bring people together because of honesty.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them, I said, if y'all want me to advocate to make this rendering plant's another story, but to make this landfill the best that it can be, you've got an advocate that will fight, that will do everything for you. But if your goal is for me to shut down that landfill, you're going to hate me because I can't. I don't have that ability.
Yep.
And, there is times with the zoning, you can make it be way, way better.
Yeah.
Still might not be. It's still going to cut down that tree maybe that you wanted. But it is, we even given incentives on the trees. I mean, we've got the strictest tree ordinance. I get complaints constantly about the tree ordinance.
No, my neighborhood complains about it all the time.
About how egregious it is because it is, I mean, developers, I had a developer come in and meet with me that on a 50-lot subdivision, the trees that were being asked to be planted or replanted was $360,000. And all that figures into the cost of the home.
Sure.
I mean, we don't have enough affordable housing, which is a big issue. Affordable is a very subjective term.
Yeah.
But
especially nowadays, yeah.
Well, and our average home price is $700,000 now.
Right.
And we need essential workers that don't get paid like that.
Right.
And everybody complains because restaurants are closing or they're not open on certain days, but they can't find workers. And at the same time, you've got, how do you create the balance? And is that government's job? But everything we do, every overlay, and I take responsibility for those, but everything we do ups the cost at the same time. And I feel like the public has demanded that be upped. But at the same time, they would like to have more places for their kids to get out of college and come back here and live.
I say that all the time. I don't know how a 22-year-old comes out of college back to Forsyth County without moving in with mom and dad again.
Oh, yeah. My family, if we hadn't had some rental property, for kids to live in, I don't think my kids wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean,
we got in early and found an affordable house and it was okay, but we couldn't have done it. If we were that age again today, we couldn't do it. There's no way.
No, it's a big issue. Yeah. That is something.
But I think it's a big issue.
It's nationwide.
Nationwide. It's not.
I've listened to the fires in California, and I've listened. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
but it's something that has to be looked at.
You got anything else, Spence?
I think I'm ready, unless you don't want to go in the quick fire.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
This is the fun part.
Okay.
What is your favorite place in Forsyth County?
My favorite place, besides, it would be a tie between two.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I love my home.
Okay.
I love where my grandkids gather around. I love keeping my kids, my grandkids, and my family. I love everything to do with family. I love my extended family getting together, and gives me a sense of peace. And I love my church. I go to Oak Grove Baptist Church, and that's a church family.
Yeah.
And so I love having that sense of belonging, and that they're going to love you no matter if you're a county commissioner or if you're a ditch digger, it doesn't matter. They love you. You're part of their family. So to me, those are things that are irreplaceable.
Absolutely.
In lots of ways. So
I think we know the answer to this. What's your favorite park in Forsyth County?
I don't know that I could. I've got great pride in Linear Land.
Okay.
And we are working on, and it got voted on and approved, but we're going to do some historical along the trails to some
Lanier
people
Land?
at Lanier Land
Okay.
that will be the history of Lanier Land. You'll see pictures of Conway Twitty and the Oak Ridge Boys
cool.
and maybe
Very
Chris Christopherson. I mean, different people that with stories.
Yeah, I went to my
That's
first.
a whole nother podcast, Lanier Land Days.
I went to my first concert there and saw Blake Shelton. It was awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, we got some stories. 36 years
Yeah.
of music there. So somebody came to me and said, if you don't preserve that history, nobody will ever know that it was here.
Yeah.
But us that, they had high school graduations there for a long time too.
Mm-hmm.
But just the memories. And we have a Lanier Land page on Facebook that is funny because people that use the park tag the page,
Right.
that here's the person working out and they always tag Lanier Land Music Park. But it is, the people have such memories. I mean, it is like a real attachment to the music park.
Sure.
Yeah. It was a great memory for me.
So this next one's going to create some controversy.
I'm used to it.
It's my favorite question of the day.
Yeah.
I'm game.
We, as you know, we did a podcast at Bottom's Tree Farm,
Yes, I watched it.
and one of the Bottoms is your son-in-law.
That's true.
All right. So now we want you to choose who your favorite Bottoms is, Nathan Bottoms or Matthew Bottoms.
That's funny. That is funny. Well, I have to go with family first.
All right.
But Matthew Bottoms knows, and Nathan Bottoms comes when my lights need changing or
Yep.
I need a new cabinet being built. If he don't get that cabinet built now, I might change and go with Matthew because, but I taught Matthew in Sunday school
Okay.
and he was one of my best memorization kids. We memorized scripture in Sunday school and nobody memorizes like Matthew Bottoms did.
There you
So
go.
I love him dearly too.
Now you get a gold star, Matthew.
Well, one, do you like coffee shops?
Do I like coffee?
Coffee shops?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So, local coffee shop or chain, if you had to choose?
I don't really have a preference. I always like to support local.
Yeah.
But I'm real big on convenience. So if there's a drive-through, I'm going to go with the drive-through.
Okay.
My problem with the coffee places is knowing what to order.
Yeah.
I get in fact, that's a younger person thing. And I sent my niece who lives in Raleigh now, I said, tell me, because she's always weight conscious and I'm on a diet, of course. And I said, tell me something I can get that's sweet and not so fattening. And so she had to write it down for me and send me her label. And so I literally go to the window and read her label.
Read the sticky note.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it can make a difference of 100 calories to 600 calories if you're not careful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially the holiday drinks at like Starbucks. Some of those
yeah.
things.
I'm a sucker for those.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta go half syrup.
I'm surprised at how many of them can survive.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a huge demand, and that you can have so many different ones, and they'd be able to. It's hard for retail and restaurants and stuff, so it's.
Spencer and I do a good job of keeping.
Oh,
them
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So Eliana's is owned by my sister's high school friend, that Karen
Okay.
Holbrook.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
And so it has a local, even though it's a chain, it
Yeah.
can be a chain and local.
Sure.
And have a
Absolutely.
local flavor.
That's true.
So.
That's true. What's the last book you read?
Oh, the best last book I read. I'm big on Audible now.
Okay.
I am like, I
We
used
count
to
that as
be.
reading.
Well, I am huge on it. And so I don't know if y'all like history, but Doris Kearns has a book. It's something love story, but it is fascinating because it's about her husband that died. But it's their love story, but it's not sappy. It's not a love story. It's really about how they met, and they worked in D.C. with John F. Kennedy. They knew the Kennedys well. She was the writer for Lyndon B. Johnson, and had a real close relationship with him. Doris Godwin Kearns. And anyway, it is one of the best books I have ever read in my life.
Okay.
And it is very historical. And it's amazing if you look at the tumultuous times that we have lived through with the burning of, the Black Lives Matter, or the doing of, I don't know. And then you read a book like that talks about, how bad politics was then. I mean, all the disjointedness between political parties. And when you go back and you read and you realize, that was a pretty bad time back then too.
Yeah.
You had Vietnam, you had a lot of different things, and it sort of puts things into perspective. It is bad, but I don't know that it was any worse. And the decisions being made, and I'm particularly interested in the decisions that you do. Sometimes in government, people do things for the best of reasons, and the consequences are horrific later.
Yeah.
And sometimes on the federal level, it might take 10 and 20 years before you realize how horrific it is. And you look at NAFTA, you look at all these different things, and I think that her book is so revealing. I mean, she was very writing about civil rights and just all that time period, and y'all would love it. It's a great book.
Well, good segue to the next one then. If you get to have dinner with any historical figure that's ever lived, who would it be and why?
Probably, since I've just been watching The Chosen.
Okay.
I wouldn't be vain enough to say Jesus, because I feel like
that's our number one answer.
I know I'm going to see him one day.
Okay.
And I hate to think about wasting his time, but I feel like he's got such important things to be dealing with. But I do look forward to having that conversation. But I would love to, some of the disciples.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if y'all watched The Chosen yet, but I'm telling you, that show has really had an impact on me.
They did a great job with it.
I'm not saying that it is 100% biblical, all of it, because it's a show.
Sure.
But it aligns with the teaching that I have had, and I think we lots of times look at our Lord and Savior as not being the human aspect of him.
Right.
And we put him up too high, or we're bad about not having the proper balance.
Right.
But I think of being able to show him in that human perspective helps each of us, like with mental health.
Sure.
It helps us with addiction. It helps us with all these different things, because we realize that he was human and he did come to earth and die for each of us individually. And I think having that and knowing that makes us, when you see him crying in the garden, or on Lazarus' death, and you're able to see that he had the same emotions that we have.
And telling jokes and having a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. And I just love, I never thought I'd like Matthew because he was a tax collector, and I thought I can't like a tax collector. But Matthew is I love Matthew. I love his sincerity.
Yeah.
And I love that he's got those little tics, and maybe is, got a learning disability, but and how much it shows that the Lord loves all of us in our imperfection. And I've always loved Peter, because I feel like if I would have been, I'm passionate like Peter, and I could see myself being out on that water and walking and following, and then I can see myself denying.
Yep.
And I love to think on things like that. And to me, those are the people that I'd like to talk.
That's a cool answer.
Yeah.
I never got that one. What you got?
Let's see. What's one item you can't live without?
Well, are we talking our children, our grandkids? Are we talking about
material?
Material.
Let's say material item.
I like my coffee in the morning.
Okay.
I like my TV.
Same.
And as bad as I hate to admit it, I'm addicted to my cell phone too.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably one of our biggest answers.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy, but I am addicted to it.
It's definitely not healthy, but I don't know how you live without one. I mean, I'd love to try, but
I know.
It's impossible.
I just don't. I think, to me, I left it in the car today on accident. And I'll tell you, when I first got in the room and I realized it, I thought I had a little anxiety.
Yeah.
But they intend for that to be the case.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you should read that book, The Anxious Generation, too, because the school system's reading it right now.
Yeah.
All of them, the Board of Education is. Mitch, I've had a conversation, and it is scary.
Yeah.
And I'm on the North Forsyth Synergy team. That was one more thing I forgot to tell you. I'm on North United. I think I'm the longest standing member that has ever been on LSAC. I started when my kids were in elementary school, and I've never come off.
Wow.
I've been on 30-something years. I've been on all the strategic plans for the school system, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our schools. But when you hear your administrators talk about how do we combat and deal with our kindergartners that are bringing cell phones, smartphones to school?
Yeah.
And you hear the SROs talking about it's very difficult to control the drugs that are passing the hands of kids in high school because of those devices.
Sure.
And they have their apps. So it is, when you read the algorithms and read that book, it is alarming how planned this has been.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for a minute.
Yeah,
Why don't
y'all
you-
are going to have to definitely edit this out. It is way too long.
Well, why
I
don't
knew
you-
it.
Why don't you tell us, if you know, what are the next steps for you? Where are you going to go?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm wanting. I mean, I'm still involved with the drug council.
Sure.
I'm still involved. We've got our summit coming up in February at UNG. We've got a walk to remember or walk for recovery that's
Right.
coming up at the city center in April. I'm involved with mental health is huge because of the need, and we're going to still keep advocating for more resources to have our citizens to have a place to go.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be involved with Keystone in the special needs community, trying to get that done. But, that's like, I'm bored with just those three things.
Okay.
I mean, like, all of those are good, but they're.
We got plenty
and
of
I'm going to
filing.
be president of North Forsyth Rotary next year.
That's right.
Okay.
So I've got that going too. But I don't know. I know that I won't be happy if I'm not still doing something to help the community.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, unless the Lord tells me not to, I'm going to still keep advocating for what's good for our county. I mean, I'm not going to just go away from that. And, if I see things that are not being done transparently, which are going to be harder for me to see out of office.
Sure.
But if I see that they're not putting stuff on a published agenda and they're making decisions in public meetings, I'm going to call it on it. And I'm just debating about how far I go with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a decision, even though I've got a name for it. I'll share my name for it. I've been thinking about if I started, and I even put out there on social media, do you do a group or do you do a page? And,
Right.
I'm very
Start a podcast.
I'm very ignorant on what way. I don't want to do something that's going to shackle me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to create more headache and pain and agony and more criticism and all that other. The beauty is, though, now that I'm not in public office, delete. You have much more ability to control the
Right.
angst. I'm never afraid of people disagreeing with me. That's not bother me. I think that's good. I think it makes you better. What I have a problem with is lying.
Yeah.
And people writing things that are not true to further their own narrative. So my grandmother's name, who was had a picture of her in my office. Lois B. Hurd was her name. Lois Bannister Hurd. She always put the initial B. And I had a picture of her. They at one time were going to put an airport on a big airport on the land up in Dawson Forest that
Still
the city
talking
of
about it.
Atlanta
Yeah.
is on. And it would have wiped out all of our homes on Bannister Road. It would have wiped out Oak Grove Church. There was going to be a runway
Wow.
on their plans for Oak Grove Church. And so my grandmother and a group of people went, and she was probably in her 70s then, maybe. I thought she was real old. But they put in the AJC in the paper of her, and she had her little sign, no airport, Forsyth County. And so I always had that in my office, like as an advocate, like
Sure.
standing for what she believed for her community.
That's
and
cool.
so I thought if I ever start something, I'm going to call it Be Heard.
Well, where can people find you? How should they contact you if they want to reach out?
I think my phone number's on every bathroom wall in the county.
Okay.
But I am all over Facebook.
Okay.
My problem is that, you can only have 5,000 friends, and I've probably got a few hundred that I can't even accept.
Sure.
I don't know all of them. Probably a lot of them are aliases that are part of the club that just want to watch what I write so they can share it with other people.
Yeah.
Who knows? And I don't know how all that works. That's why I thought about starting. I just don't want to be a moderator about snakes. Like I don't want to create a group and then all of a sudden it's like, what kind of snake is this? Or what is this? I'm
When's
like,
Lytle coming?
no, I'm not doing that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I probably need to hire somebody to help me figure it out.
Well, let us know when you do, and we'll help spread the word on where to find you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I
thank you.
appreciate it. Thank
you for
y'all.
joining us. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having
coming.
me here. And
Absolutely.
keep fighting the good fight.
We're going to see what happens. Keep taking it down the road. So I'll close this out. As always, you can find us at bettismusgrove.com, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at Bettis Musgrove. Get your podcasts wherever you get your podcasts and give us a listen, see what we're doing. Look forward to bringing season 2 to you and just seeing where this podcast goes. But until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless.